right now, as you're sitting there listening to this, maybe you're driving in your car or, just looking out your kitchen window, there is this highly synchronized biological alarm clock going off all around you.
It really is. It's happening everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's ringing in your front yard. It's ringing inside the dark wall voids of your house. Like, right this second, Argentine ants are sending out these microscopic reconnaissance units along your foundation.
Exactly. Just quietly mapping things out.
And subterranean termites, they're flexing their new wings, getting ready to break through the damp earth. And you know that pair of rodents that quietly overwintered in your attic?
Oh, yeah, the ones people just sort of forget about.
Right. Well, they just dropped their first spring litter. It is this completely invisible awakening, and it is happening right under your nose.
It's wild, right? Because it completely changes the way you look at your own living room when you start to visualize it like that.
It really does.
We tend to view our homes as these static, impenetrable boxes made of wood and concrete. But biologically speaking, your property is highly contested territory, and the opposing army is actively mobilizing its front lines.
Mobilizing in massive numbers, too. And that invisible awakening is exactly why we are analyzing the playbook of Ian Chi today.
Yeah, the CEO of Simple Pest Management.
Exactly. Because their approach, it completely flips traditional pest control on its head. They focus on interception rather than, just reaction.
Which is such a crucial distinction.
It is. But real quick, before we get deep into the biology of this hidden war, if you enjoy how we unpack these deep dives, please follow and like the show wherever you're listening.
Yeah, it really helps us out.
And honestly, for this specific topic, you absolutely need to follow Simple Pest Management on social media and visit www.simplepest.com. You're going to see exactly why their philosophy is so crucial as we get into this.
Definitely go check them out.
So our mission today is to understand why April, like this exact month right now, is the single most important and simultaneously the most overlooked window for pest control in California.
The time frame really is everything. I mean, to defend the perimeter, you first have to understand the specific biology of the adversaries waking up across the state.
Right, because it's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
Not at all. The threats are highly localized. Like, if you're listening from San Diego, your primary adversary is the Argentine ant.
And those aren't just like normal little ant holes.
Oh, no. They aren't isolated, independent nests. They operate as these massive super colonies.
Wow.
Yeah, and the moment irrigation season starts, they begin laying down chemical pheromone trails. It acts almost like biological fiber optic cables, just following the moisture lines directly into your home.
So they're basically laying down an invisible communications network before you even know they're there.
Exactly.
But then, if you're listening up in Sacramento, the environmental pressures completely change the adversary. Up there, the dominant force is the odorous house ant.
Right, a totally different behavioral pattern.
Yeah, they actually skip the long yard trails and prefer to establish their base of operations right up against human infrastructure. Nesting under concrete slabs or exploiting the heat generated by your water heater.
They love that warmth.
But the underlying mathematics of the threat, it's exactly the same. Like one single queen can establish a colony of thousands within weeks.
Which is terrifying. And then, we scale up to the heavy hitters, the subterranean termites.
The ones that literally eat your house.
Exactly. The structural damage they cause in California actually surpasses fires, floods, and earthquakes combined.
Wait, combined? That's insane.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah.
And their biological alarm clock is incredibly precise. They don't just swarm randomly between March and May.
Right. The article mentioned they're waiting for very specific conditions.
Right. You're waiting for soil temperatures to hit the mid-70s immediately following a rain event.
I actually want to pause on that for a second because it's such a specific environmental trigger. Like, why the rain? Are they just waiting for the dirt to turn to mud so it's easier to dig out?
Well, I mean, it's partly about the mechanical ease of pushing through the softened soil, sure. But it's actually primarily about atmospheric physics.
Atmospheric physics for a bug.
Yeah. Subterranean termites require massive amounts of moisture to survive. Their swarming wings are highly delicate.
Oh, I see.
So if they emerge on a hot, dry day, they will literally desiccate and die before they can even mate and establish a new colony. The rain provides the ambient humidity they require to just survive that vulnerable flight.
Okay, that makes total sense. So they're basically waiting for the perfect launch window.
Exactly.
And they aren't the only ones exploiting the changing weather. Spiders, specifically black and brown widows, are currently claiming territory right now in dark, undisturbed areas.
Like garages and utility meter boxes.
Yep. And the mosquito populations are shifting into high gear. The second nighttime temperatures stay consistently above 50 degrees.
The adaptability of mosquitoes is really what makes them so formidable. I mean, they don't require a pond or a creek to multiply.
Right.
The biological reality is that a female mosquito can lay eggs in a forgotten plant saucer, a clogged gutter, or, get this, a discarded plastic bottle cap holding just a fraction of an ounce of rainwater.
A bottle cap. I mean, that completely redefines what a breeding ground even looks like.
It really does. You have to look at your yard totally differently.
And again, geography really dictates the pressure here. Sacramento faces immense mosquito populations because of the vast river systems and agricultural runoff.
Right.
But San Diego might lack the rivers, but the proximity to natural canyons combined with, like, poor residential yard drainage creates the exact same microenvironments.
And we also have to factor in the mammalian threat.
Ah, the rodents.
Yeah, the mice and rats that spent the winter quietly sheltering in the insulation of your crawl space,
Yeah.
they're now shifting their metabolic energy into aggressive reproduction.
And they breed fast, right?
Incredibly fast. The gestation period is extremely short. A single pair of mice, if left unchecked, can produce over 60 offspring in a 12-month period.
60 from one pair.
Yeah, it's exponential.
Man, looking at all these numbers, the thousands of ants, the swarming termites, the exponential rodent math, it really feels like the spring buildup is an invading army sending out its reconnaissance drones.
That's a great analogy.
Like, they're probing the fortress for weaknesses, mapping the routes, and if you let them finish drawing the map, the main infantry just marches in right behind them. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill, easy to stop at the top, deadly at the bottom.
Exactly. Once it gains momentum, you're in trouble.
But let me push back on the urgency of all this for a second, because I feel like the natural human instinct is to wait.
Sure, out of sight, out of mind.
Right. Isn't it easier, and honestly significantly cheaper, to just hold off until you actually see a bug crawling across your kitchen island and then deal with it? Just grab some spray.
Well, it seems logical financially, right? But it actually represents a fundamental misunderstanding of pest biology. Waiting to see the pest means you have already lost the initial war.
Really?
Yeah, let's apply this to the termite swarm. Seeing winged termites emerging from your baseboards or your foundation is not the beginning of an infestation. Ian Chi's philosophy categorizes this as a diagnostic event.
Okay, so it's a symptom. It's the symptom of an underlying disease that's been progressing in secret. Basically the tip of the iceberg.
It is definitive proof that a mature colony is already entrenched. For a termite colony to produce reproductive swarmers, it must have already been feeding on the wooden structure of your home for months or potentially even years.
Wow.
So the swarm isn't the invasion. The swarm is the victory parade of a colony that has already conquered your wall voids.
The victory parade. That is a truly chilling way to frame it.
It is, but it's accurate.
So if waiting until you see the visual evidence means the battle is already lost, that brings us to the core mission. Why April is the ultimate window to strike. We have to, cut off their supply lines, blind those reconnaissance drones before they report back to base.
Exactly. The military strategy analogy works perfectly here. The science of pest control in April is structurally different than in July.
How so?
Well, right now, ant colonies are vulnerable because their communication networks, those pheromone trails we talked about earlier, they're faint and they're still being established.
Ah, okay.
So when you intervene now, you sever their supply lines before the population hits critical mass.
So right now, you're fighting a disorganized scout team.
Yes.
But if you wait until July, those faint pheromone trails have become hardened multi-lane highways, and then you're fighting this entrenched summer colony with satellite nests scattered all over your property.
Exactly. And the exact same principle applies to rodent exclusion, which is, the physical sealing of entry points around your home.
Right.
Spring is mathematically the optimal time to do this, because after the cold winter, rodent populations are still highly concentrated in their specific harborage areas. We know exactly where they're clustered.
Oh, I see. So if you wait until the summer, after that single pair of mice has produced 60 offspring, they aren't clustered anymore.
Nope. They've dispersed.
So if I go out in July and seal up a hole near my AC unit, I haven't solved the problem at all. I've just forced a massive panic population to chew a new hole through my weather stripping to get in or out.
Precisely. You're just displacing the pressure rather than relieving it. The overarching concept here is interception.
Interception. I like that.
Early intervention fundamentally costs less and requires way fewer invasive treatments because you are establishing a shield
Mhm.
before the summer heat pushes insect metabolism and destructive activity to its absolute peak.
Okay, so the biological why is super clear, and the mathematical when points directly to April. Let's move into the mechanics of the how. Because people want to know what tactics actually intercept these populations and what methods are just homeowners wasting their weekends and their money. Let's start with the heavy artillery. If I want to build that shield, what is the absolute highest impact strategy?
Without a doubt, the most effective method is a professional perimeter treatment applied right now in early spring.
Okay.
Simple pest management utilizes a highly specific three-zone system for this. It's not just about spraying the base of the house. It's about creating layered physical and chemical barriers across the fence line, the yard, and the foundation.
It's a defense in depth strategy. You don't just defend the castle walls, you mine the moat and you set up blockades in the fields way out beyond the moat.
Exactly.
But how does that chemical barrier actually work? Does it just repel them like an invisible force field?
Not anymore, no. Modern interception doesn't rely purely on repellents. Many of the advanced treatments utilize what's called a transfer effect.
A transfer effect.
Yeah, so the chemical is completely undetectable to the foraging ants. They walk right through the treated zone, pick up the active ingredient on their exoskeleton, and carry it deep into the colony.
Oh, wow.
It acts like a Trojan horse. By the time the chemical actually activates, it's already been distributed through the colony's grooming and feeding behaviors, effectively collapsing the population from the inside out.
That is brilliant. You're using their own highly social biology against them.
Exactly.
But obviously, a chemical barrier needs physical support. Which brings us to moisture. We already established that a literal bottle cap can breed mosquitoes, but how does water impact the structural pests?
Moisture is the ultimate biological attractant. An interception strategy will completely fail if you're actively providing an oasis.
It makes sense.
Auditing every water source within 10 feet of the foundation is mandatory. A leaky hose bib or a sprinkle head that sprays directly onto the stucco that is continuously degrading your foundation's defenses.
Just washing away the barrier.
And worse, it's signaling to every termite and ant colony in the soil that water is available right there.
And right alongside water is the physical environment itself. Vegetation management is critical here.
Oh, hugely.
If you're listening to this right now and looking out your window at a beautiful blooming bougainvillea that is leaning heavily against your siding, you are essentially looking at an 8-lane superhighway bypassing your foundation entirely.
Yep. The branches just act as a physical bridge over the treated zones we just discussed. Ants and spiders will simply climb the plant, bypass the chemical barrier at the soil level entirely, and march directly into your weep holes or window frames.
So what's the rule of thumb?
Maintaining a strict 6-inch air gap between all vegetation and the physical structure of the house. That forces pests to the ground where the interception barrier is waiting for them.
Okay, so the perimeter is secured, the moisture is gone, the vegetation is trimmed. What about the physical house itself? Because I know people who spend hours on Saturday afternoons caulking every microscopic crack around their windows and vents.
Well, sealing physical gaps around utility penetrations and door frames, it is an important moderate impact strategy. It definitely reduces the easy entry points.
Moderate impact. Why just moderate?
Because it cannot be your only line of defense. Pests evolve to exploit imperfections. They will relentlessly probe your exterior until they find the microscopic flaw in the flashing or the hairline fracture in the concrete that human eyes just missed.
Which brings us to the counterintuitive science. The low impact, or honestly, the negative impact methods that actively sabotage your own home.
Yes, this is so important.
Let's talk about bug bombs and over-the-counter foggers. Because I have to admit, I always assumed foggers were the ultimate nuclear option. You set one off in the garage, the room fills with a dense chemical cloud, and nothing survives. How does that make the problem worse?
It all comes down to penetration and behavioral response. The chemical plumes from over-the-counter foggers just do not possess the kinetic energy to penetrate deeply into the wall voids or under the flooring.
Where the core colony is actually hiding?
Exactly. They only coat the exposed superficial surfaces of the room.
So, wait. The bugs inside the walls don't die. What do?
They detect the highly concentrated repellent chemical stress in their environment, and they go into survival mode.
Oh.
Yeah. This triggers a biological mechanism known as budding, or colony fracturing. The queen basically panics and splits the single localized colony into multiple smaller subcolonies.
Wait, really?
Yes. And these new factions retreat even deeper into the inaccessible architecture of your home to escape the chemical plume.
That is staggering. So you go to the hardware store to fix an ant trail in the corner of your kitchen, and by setting off a fogger, you literally force them to colonize your ceiling, your interior walls, and your subfloor.
You are training them to fortify. You turn an isolated, easily treatable foraging trail into a widespread structural infestation.
That is wild.
It makes the eventual professional remediation exponentially more difficult and expensive. And similarly ineffective are those ultrasonic pest repellers you plug into a wall outlet.
Oh, the ones that claim to emit a high-frequency pitch that drives rodents and insects insane. I've seen those.
Yes, there is absolutely zero credible, peer-reviewed scientific evidence demonstrating that those ultrasonic devices alter pest behavior or provide any level of exclusion in real-world environments.
So it's just a placebo.
It is effectively junk science. Pests habituate to the noise almost immediately.
So we avoid the foggers and we unplug the noise machines. Armed with all of this understanding, the biology of the awakening, the mathematics of the April window, and the reality of what actually intercepts them, we want to hand you a highly actionable, immediate checklist.
Yes, time to get to work.
Exactly. Consider yourself deputized as a backyard pest detective this week.
And the detective mindset is crucial here. Pests establish their beachheads very quietly. By the time the damage is loud, the invasion is already complete. You have to actively hunt for the environmental clues.
So, detective, your first assignment is outside. Walk the perimeter of your foundation and pay specific attention to the south and west-facing exterior walls. Why those walls? Because of solar heat gain. They absorb the most sunlight and warm up the earliest in the spring, which kicks insect metabolism into gear first.
You want to look closely at the concrete for pencil-width, vertical mud tubes. If you see those creeping up from the soil to your siding, you are looking at active subterranean termite highways.
Definitely call the pros if you see that. What about inside?
Moving indoors, focus your audit on the microenvironments that generate heat and moisture. Use a flashlight under your sinks, behind your toilets, and around the base of your water heater.
Looking for scouts.
Exactly. You are looking for those faint, early-season ant trails. Do not dismiss 2 or 3 ants as a random occurrence. Those are the reconnaissance units mapping the route for the thousands waiting in the soil.
Okay, this next one requires some light forensics, but you need to inspect the dark corners of your attic and garage for rodent droppings.
Not the most glamorous job.
No, but necessary. They look like dark grains of rice, but the texture tells the story. If you find droppings that are dark and relatively moist, you have a current active population breeding in your home right now.
But if they are gray, dusty, and crumbly, it is old evidence of a past intrusion.
Right. And finally, observe the hydrology of your own yard. Step outside an hour after your irrigation system runs, or, an hour after a spring rain shower.
Any water that is still pooling on the concrete in the lawn or in a children's toy that is an active mosquito nursery.
Empty those out.
And while you are mapping the yard, locate your firewood. A stack of logs resting against the side of your house is essentially a luxury high-rise for rodents and spiders with direct access to your living room.
Move it at least 10 feet away from the structure. Create that physical moat.
It makes a huge difference.
So everything we have discussed today and the core of ENG's interception philosophy really comes down to this. Spring pest control is not a reactionary spray bottle under the sink.
No, not at all.
It is a strategic disruption of a massive biological buildup. April is the narrow mathematical window you have to sever their supply lines, break their communication networks, and just win the war before the summer heat makes it an unwinnable battle.
And, as you go out to inspect your foundation and audit your yard, it really leaves you with a rather profound realization to chew on.
Yeah.
We spend our lives engineering these incredibly complex climate-controlled environments for our own comfort, right?
Wait.
But in doing so, we have inadvertently designed the perfect utopias for species that predate us by millions of years.
Oh, wow.
I mean, they map the heat signatures of our appliances. They track the automated schedules of our sprinklers to find reliable moisture. They locate the microscopic flaws in the concrete we pour.
They're basically studying us.
Exactly. So if these tiny ancient organisms are so perfectly attuned to the exact rhythms of our modern lives, what other hidden ecosystems are thriving right under our noses, entirely dependent on the daily human routines we never even think twice about?
Man, that is a haunting and fascinating thought to leave on. The biological alarm clock is ringing, and they know our daily schedules better than we do. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, get out there and audit those south facing walls and intercept those problems before they even start.